Welcome, I'm Kinetic Symphony. This is Dave. I hunt down and report on weird and true mysterious stories, from glitches to the supernatural. Case file number 1810, written by EmseMCE. In the dark by the cars, a massive tail leaves us wondering if we're on Mars. When I was a little kid, my family, parents, sibling aunts, uncles, and cousins would always go camping at a lake on or near the 4th of July. One night, I went to get a Shasta out of the cooler on my own. I had to have been 9 or 10 years old. I was on my own, but not alone, just away from the group. We'd always have to mow a section to camp in and make a ring around a massive tree. Cars, then tents, then the fire pit in that order made a semicircle. So other people were out, but by the fire pit or in their tents because it was already dark out. So I'm alone, but just have to look back to see people. Within shouting distance for sure. Anyways, I had a flashlight, and I'm going to the cooler that's near the cars and I'm shining the light on the ground. Because whether being serious or just trying to scare me, an uncle had to tell me to look out for snakes and tarantulas. As a kid, it was obvious snakes and tarantulas were around. I'd see them be moved or scared away whenever my family would cut the grass before setting up the campsite. As I get near the cooler, I'm walking alongside the cars, and I see a massive tail coming out from under the car. Like too big, the length of my arm and thick as my thigh, just the tail. It obviously notices me and kind of twitches. I notice it and freeze for a second, panic. Then it shoots off under the car and through the grass on the other side. The way it moved was too fast and not like a slither, so I'm thinking of the tail of a massive lizard. I still got my Shasta and beat it back to the campfire. I don't think I told anyone about it, or if I did, they might have just written it off as me imagining it. I still think about what it could have been from time to time. My best guess is maybe someone had a massive pet iguana, and it either escaped or they let it go. I live in Oklahoma, by the way. Case notes file 1810. In the dark by the cars, a massive tail leaves us wondering if we're on Mars. So there are urban legends about Bigfoot. We all know them. But you don't see many surrounding animals that are lizard-like. Which is curious because you often see that in sci-fi, especially on new planets, tentacle monsters and stuff like that. I don't think this was real in this universe. I think it was probably multiverse site, but to a distant universe where there were creatures like this. Almost could even be a space-time site where you're seeing in the past, back to millions of years ago when dinosaurs were the king apex predators, or just life on the planet. Because something like that I figure would leave a lot of evidence behind, its own excrement and signs in the brush and trees, and probably makes a lot of noise too. I doubt it could have gone unnoticed by anyone else, even if they were a bit far away. Although it would be funny if it was just someone's massive iguana pet. How you describe it doesn't seem likely, but who knows? Maybe someone's breeding them really big down there in Oklahoma. Case file number 1811, written by FishermanYellow. The Abandoned House's Creepy Clown, a day that turned our smiles down. There was this house in my hometown a few streets away from our local park that all the kids thought was haunted. A simple one-story, small house, nothing special or creepy about it. I was about 10 at the time, and one afternoon, a friend and I decided to jump the fence and go into the backyard, which was bare except for the overgrown grass, which was about knee height. There were curtains on all the windows and doors, so we couldn't see inside. We walked through the grass and closer to the veranda, approaching the rear door, when we heard this creepy clown laugh. We both hightailed it out of there as fast as we could, jumped on our bikes and rode home. My memory doesn't recall what we did after, whether we told anyone or our parents. But we never went back, and it was never lived in for the next few years I spent in the town. I was certain it wasn't my friend playing a joke, as he was right next to me, and the sound came from elsewhere. No other kids were with us, and I still can't think of how it happened. Case notes for file 1811. The Abandoned House's Creepy Clown, a day that turned our smiles down. I know a lot of people have this innate fear of clowns, and I've never shared that. I think I had a clown one time for a birthday party that my mom had hired, I just didn't really find them that interesting, but I wasn't terrified of it. I know Stephen King, he has a book, It, a movie based on it. I didn't see that, actually. It's just kind of there, it's neutral for me. It's not particularly scary or that interesting, but then I haven't really focused on it. That said, if I'm exploring an abandoned house and I hear a clown's laugh, I am booking out of there just as fast, if not faster than you did. Because what the hell? If a clown is in a place they're not supposed to be, then I might be terrified. But just in general, at a birthday party or something, that's fine. Clowns at birthday parties, A-okay. Clowns in abandoned homes, stuff of nightmare fuel. Case file number 1812, written by Daughter of Israel. From English to Korean in a blink. The K-drama that made me stop and think. A few hours ago, I got home from work and went about my usual routine. Took off my work clothes, changed in some sweats, and then scoured my fridge looking for food that's simply not there. Anyway, I plopped down on my couch and turned on the TV to scroll through what's new on Netflix. I finally settled on a random K-drama, and I chose it specifically because the trailer had an English dub. Now I know there's a very mixed opinion about this, but I prefer to watch foreign languages shows with English dubs. And it's not because I have an aversion to reading, I love to read. But most of the time, when I'm lounging on the couch and have the TV on, I'm not actually watching whatever is on. I just like to have background noise as I'm scrolling on my phone or laptop. You know, ADHD things. So the show starts, and I'm halfway listening, halfway adding things that I definitely don't need to my Amazon cart. I'm barely looking at the TV, but following along just fine, because it's in English. However, after about 15 minutes into the show, I start noticing that English is no longer being spoken. I look up from my phone and start reading the subtitles, thinking that this is just a show that switches back and forth between languages. But after a few minutes, it still hadn't returned back to English. I think, that's strange. Well, maybe when I was on my phone, I was so distracted that I rolled into the remote and it changed the language back to Korean. So I go into the settings. There's no option for an English dub. This show is strictly only in Korean. Confused, I rewind the show back to the beginning because, like I explained, for the first 15 minutes or so, I could have sworn I was following along to English being spoken. But no, the characters are definitely only speaking Korean now. I don't know what to think. I guess I could have been reading the subs in English, so I heard English in my head. But that's just not adding up for me because I was barely reading the subs, yet still felt like I knew what was being said. And I could have sworn the trailer was in English, which was ultimately why I clicked on the show in the first place. Case answer file 1812. From English to Korean in a blink. The K-drama that made me stop and think. So we have had stories like this, maybe 3 times? Trying to remember. I think one was where someone had developed, they needed glasses, they were looking out the window, but they didn't have their glasses on and yet had perfect eyesight, and then realized later that they needed their glasses again. So their vision corrected and then went back to normal. Another time, there was a story, I think it was a cop that was talking to a suspect in a different language or something like that. The idea of either your senses correcting themselves or having the ability to interpret information you shouldn't be able to, like a language you don't know. There is one other possibility, that it wasn't related to your brain, but it was actually a kind of multiverse site or temporary transition, where you were in a different universe where they did have, over there, dubs for this show, but back here they didn't. So you really did listen to it in English for the first 15 minutes, and then you transferred back, and then of course, the dubs don't exist. So if it isn't that, if it is really just the brain suddenly having that information and understanding, I don't know, what could cause that? Because it reverts. If it was permanent, then you could say it's almost like the brain rewiring itself, piecing information from the subconscious, and then incorporating that into the conscious mind, and almost like boosting your IQ with the limitless pill. But I don't know, it seems weird because it reverts back. It's almost like your brain was testing its capability. Like your subconscious was trying to upgrade, but didn't want to go too far, too fast. Maybe it was too much for your brain. I don't know. I'm kind of stumped on these ones because they're very infrequent and it's not entirely clear what could cause that. Obviously, it's something happening in your brain if it's not multiverse related. The fact it reverts just leaves me stumped. Or you know what? And just a random thought I had. What if sometimes, in quantum immortality, maybe the soul that is transferring over from a different universe isn't directed properly? Maybe sometimes it latches onto an incorrect body, and the souls intermingle, but they're not the same soul. So maybe in those periods of time, you develop a certain, if this person was Korean, maybe it was a Korean girl that died, transferred into you, and then for 15 minutes until they corrected it and sent her to the correct body, her body, then you knew Korean. That's completely spitballing, but kind of makes some sense. Nothing is perfect, right? The simulation isn't. So if it is a simulation and there's a soul zipping over, maybe sometimes they make mistakes. Kind of makes me wonder, what would happen if the soul was permanently in you? You would just develop a split personality. Maybe that's what's going on with people who develop split personality. Maybe they literally do have a different soul in them. It's kind of wild. Kind of wild. Now time for the quote of the day. Dr. Richard Kimball. It's not just about your guilt or innocence. It's about justice. Yeah, that's a man that is thinking not of the individual, but of the holistic level, macro scale implications. Because if there is no justice system, if there's no system where people believe that there is blind justice and accurate justice, that the innocent go free and the guilty are punished, if people lose faith in that, maybe it'll lead to chaos. Now, I don't really believe that, but I understand the perspective. And this was from the movie The Fugitive, which is a great movie, and it tugs at your heart because if you're innocent. I mean, most people who are innocent don't run, but if they do, if they know they're innocent, they really didn't do what they're accused of. I mean, I get it. And then the whole apparatus that is supposed to work for you turns against you. It's really the stuff of nightmares, if you ask me. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off.